Oh, hi everyone. I'm just here getting my socials up and stepping up my pussy, giving you a recap of And Just Like That. I pour myself one glass of wine. I don't even finish it. This is not a drunk recap, as some people have been thinking. This is actually me in real life, completely sober. So in this episode that's called Sex and the Widow does not have sex. I had to bring out a cheese plate for this episode because it was a little bit boring. Che and Miranda, spoiler alert. And Miranda, even I'm going backwards here, but this is how important this is. And Miranda says, I think I'm in love with you. What? You're in your 50s. You've already been through this phase of your life where you think sex equals love. You're going through a queer awakening. It's not about Che. It's about you. And Che even says that. They called it a comedy show. They called it a Netflix show. It's a comedy concert. You got me in that rhythm and you took it away from me in this episode. Nobody said comedy concert. Steve's running around the farmer's market like, I don't know where the tomatoes are anymore. They moved it. And they're trying to make him look addled and doddering and all these things. And he's still coming off hotter than Miranda could ever hope to be and more fun to hang out with than she could ever be. And with her ACLU tote bag, bitch, you don't give a shit about anyone's rights. Justice for Steve. It starts at home, okay? If I wanted to hire you as my lawyer, I'd be like, how do you treat your husband? Oh, what? Oh, no. Okay, no. I'll represent myself in court. There's tennis. I don't give a shit about tennis. I don't even watch professionals play tennis. I felt like I was watching an Activia commercial. The gay guy that was screaming, I have a toddler. Somebody give him his own show. I would watch that show. He seems like a lot of fun, actually. Anthony got a hand job by a cater waiter. Of course, they didn't show it, but at least somebody talked about the fact that they had sex in this show. Seema sits with the three girls. Everyone's like, oh my God, what a big moment. We're past it. They did Samantha dirty. Sure, put anyone in to sit there. Who fucking cares at this point? Why does Charlotte talk like Moira from Schitt's Creek now? Harry, women have been saying, I'm sorry, forever. As Demi Lovato says, sorry, not sorry. Carrie goes on a date with a math teacher and they both puke, and I actually thought it was fucking adorable and I loved it. And thank you for not putting us through Carrie signing up on a dating app. Like we already had the AOL episode in the 90s. Thank you. You did that exactly right. Thank God we didn't have to see any of Che's comedy at the auction. I would have paid $5 million to that school to get her to stop doing comedy. Anyway, you can see the whole hour-long recap on my Patreon. It costs $3 a month to join, and you get all the And Just Like That recaps, and you'll see the whole nuanced thing. Patreon.com/Jen Kirkman, or go to the link in my bio. Does Nia Wallace teach some kind of lawyer class that I could take where I learn how to become a lawyer, and my specific specialty in my practice is that I just defend Steve? The defendant is guilty of being a cunt to her husband just because he has a hearing aid. First of all, I came up with Justice for Steve. I said it in December of 2021. Check the tape. And now Vanity Fair and The Cut and all these fancy New York magazines are like, Justice for Steve. I see you. Steve, at least we got a lot of Steve in this episode. He's wandering around the farmer's market. Miranda's yelling at him on the phone. Can you hear me? First of all, he can hear you. Everybody can hear you. And then Steve's like, you were yelling at me. And I mean, he did kind of throw her under the bus on that one. But you know what? I would too. I'd be like, she beats me. My wife's a bitch. But even him behaving that way at the farmer's market is more attractive and more fun than Miranda will ever be. I'm finally glad the world is catching on to what I've always known. Miranda fucking sucks. Sorry, dudes. Then she's all like to Carrie, we can't go to therapy. We already did that. Yeah, 15 years ago. That's like me saying, I peed 15 years ago, so I don't pee anymore, and then I give myself sepsis. That's your attempt at working on the marriage, is a year goes by, or 3 months, or a year and 3 months, depending on the messy timeline of this episode that makes no sense. You're just gonna not talk about it for years, and then one day go, finger me in the kitchen. And then they tried to make him look bad by having him wash his hands. I thought that was the hottest thing I'd ever seen. I'm like, oh my God, he's washing his hands before he touches her private area. It's New York City. Please wash your hands before you finger me. Then why are they doing this to him? He's like, is that how you do it? He's like sticking his hand like he's sticking it in a junk drawer looking for things. Like, am I doing it right? It's like he knows where your beep is. He knows. He was a bartender in the 90s. He fucked everybody. He was a sexy guy. That was what you loved about him. That's all you guys had in common was the sex. Steve's good in bed. He knows how to finger. Get out of here. Che Diaz is better in bed than him. That pothead. When Steve first met Miranda, she was guzzling down her wine because she didn't know how to enjoy it. And he's like, give me that. And he's like, this is a Cote de Rhone Dupa-Doo wine. And then he showed her how to take her time with it. That guy knows how to finger. Justice for Steve. I'm gonna go hang out with Samantha in London and be like, guess what I did with my life? I know you don't know me, but I became a lawyer for Steve. Yeah, because he's just being treated like shit. How much is he paying you? I'm working pro bono. Pro bono or pro boner? She'll keep my secret. Oh, for fuck's sake, I had a little camera mishap tonight when I was doing this. I'd already recorded a whole episode and I was starting to do the edits to advertise it on my socials. Get your socials up! And the thing was corrupted and it deleted. It's a whole thing. But so I'll put up I'll put up a trailer of the things I made. I don't know what I'm saying. So I'm just redoing this and I wanted to be in bed by now. I fucked up. Welcome to another recap of And Just Like That with me, Jen Kirkman. I don't know what's going on with my hair. I don't like to wear it like this because it looks too like adult, but I put some waves in it, but it's like it needs to just settle down. That's okay. It'll look great in the morning. I mean, it looks great now. It's just not the style I want. Anywho, as I was saying in my other video, I literally do pour a glass of wine and don't get through it because I'm talking the whole time, but the idiot kids or whatever they are on TikTok are like, was this like drunk history? I guess why wouldn't you think it was? But it's like, I mean, this is how I behave in real life when I'm like animated and performing. That's why I'm so fun to be around. But I'm like, no, I wouldn't get drunk and do these because then I have to edit them and upload them. Like I literally work 6:30 in the morning till 12 at night on all my jobs and I'm burning out. My schedule will start to calm down next week. You don't need all these details. Anyway, my point is, it's literally a glass of wine. And tonight I had a cheese plate. Oh, I can see the weight gain in my face too. Not just from tonight, but just from Omicron. Omicron and I'm staying home acron, except for work. Okay, so I'm just getting my notes up here. So, and just like that, episode 7, I don't want like, so then like a lot of the younger people, I don't know how old they are. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm feeling like backlash to ageism. So now I'm throwing it right back. But like, people are like, if you hate the show, why do you even do this? It's like, these are clips you're watching from a full length thing that people pay me to do. So that's why I do it. And I know you can't make fun of things that you truly hate. That's what people don't get. Everyone who's asking me, go make fun of other stuff. It's like, I don't love a lot of things. Like, I would rewatch Beverly Hills 90210, like the original from the beginning or something, because I loved that show with all of my heart. And it was a part of me. So I would go back and watch it with today's perspective. Like, that could be something. By the way, this $3 where you get like my podcast and the recaps, that has not happened. That was just to get people in as I like went to an all paid model for my podcast. But this was a one-time special thing. Like this $3 thing, like you're getting shit that should be like $5 or $10 a month. But so I think the 90210 thing I'll do maybe at some point this year, but that would be like a $5 or $7 or $10 level a month thing. Plus you'd get all this other content, like all the content I've posted for the last year, my podcast twice a month, all the bonus episodes. I mean, I'm always the one getting ripped off. Don't worry. Anyway, so I was very confused by this week's episode. I have been listening to the Writers Room podcast, which is Michael Patrick King and the writers. And it was funny because I was like telling people at work about everyone I work with, we all watch it and talk about it. But I was telling some people at work that didn't know about the podcast, and they're like, why would you ever do a podcast of the show you wrote on? I'm like, I do it with my Hallmark movie, but it's like, again, I write on shows that I know people are going to be like, I don't like this. And it's like, I'm just getting a paycheck. I'm not like innocent in every process. Like, I pitch things, and maybe some of the things I pitch you end up seeing on TV and you're like, I hate that. It doesn't hurt me because you're hating it like a year after I already did it. Like, even sometimes a year and a half. It's like so not the same feeling as stand up, where it's like an immediate rejection. And a lot of times I'll be like, oh, I really loved this thing I'm saying, and it's the best I can do. It's like with writing, you always feel like you're always kind of second guessing yourself because you have time to, in a way. And if it's not your own show, then like you gotta honor like what the bosses want. And so like it just doesn't hurt my feelings. People are like, I hated that show. It's like, all right, well, I got paid and it's a year and a half later, so enjoy your comments. But it's weird that the writers are doing this to themselves, because they're now bringing their feelings and selves into real time. Like, they wrote this a year ago and it was filmed last year, and it's like, okay, but it's baffling to me, because I get where they're coming from on so many levels. Like, I get the show they're trying to do, and I get that sometimes the discussions they have in the room feel like good episodes, but then once it trickles down on paper and then goes through this process and that, and once you film it and once this, I mean, there's so many hands in that stew. But there's also, so there's that level where it's like none of us can critique it because you just don't know what goes on in those rooms. Like, meaning you do know, which is that like they're not in control. But then there's some stuff where it's like you have this platform to explain to us what's going on, and I actually don't think you know what's going on. Like, I actually don't think the writers meant for Che to be this like fuck boy, as they say, it's not a gendered word, BOI, but like fuck person. They don't think Che is like a bad person, narcissist. I mean, they may be intending for Che to break Miranda's heart, or Che's not going to end up being the one for Miranda, but they don't think Che's like a shitty narcissist. And literally the entire world watching this show is like, we didn't want to hate the non-binary character. You think I wanted to hate the comedian character as well? It's like, but this is a bad character. Like, who does bad, obnoxious things, I don't know. So anyway, and then it's like, they actually said, yeah, they wrote Steve to be a little bit doddering so that Miranda wouldn't look like a bad person. It's like, she looks even worse. It's like, you can fall out of love with your husband. It's not that crazy. You can fall in love with your wife. Like, what? It's totally a thing, Some couples like don't last forever, especially if one person is even questioning their identity, and it's like they want to be with women or non-binary norm, but they don't think they'll go back to a straight sex life. It's like, you can't blame anyone for that. You don't have to have just the fact that you have a husband with a penis is enough for you to be like, oh, I'm having this awakening. He doesn't have to be like, where are the tomatoes? I don't know how to finger, I'm just so confused. So in this episode, Sex and the Widow, I was very confused because, okay, so episode 6 last week, it feels like a year ago. Well, that's very interesting that I feel that way because of the timeline of this episode. But last week, episode 6, is when Che Diaz came over to Carrie's house uninvited and ended up fingering Miranda in the kitchen. And that was, so Carrie was in bed recovering from hip surgery that she had like that day or the day before. Okay, so then the episode ends 6 weeks later after Carrie's healed. So we already have a 6-week jump from episode 6 to 7, but I turn on episode 7 and we see Carrie in her window. We see it from the outside. She's still in her old Carrie apartment writing. So that's where she lives now. She's not, the big apartment has been sold, I think, the one she lived in with Big. She sold the downtown apartment. So now she's solidly back in her junior 1-bedroom on the Upper East Side or wherever. She lives. Great. We love it. We love to see it. So we're 6 months out from the last episode, but no, she's writing, typing, and literally the seasons go by. They've got leaves falling, snow, and there's I think it's a Carly Simon song about how it's spring. So we get the impression that a year goes by, which would mean a year and 6 weeks has gone by since the last episode. And yet the only character who has moved an inch is Carrie. Everyone else is exactly where they were a year and it's like, why didn't they do this timeline after episode 2? Like, Big's funeral, we do all that, cut to a year goes by. Now we start on episode 3. Now we can begin Miranda cheating on Steve. Now we can begin Charlotte's daughter Rose becoming Rock. Now we can begin Carrie dating. Why don't we start there at episode 3? We've wasted so much time on this goddamn foolish podcast that she's not on, by the way, in these later episodes. And it's so interesting because they filmed all of this and wrapped it before they started airing it. So it's not like they were getting feedback from all of us going, we hate this fucking fake Morning Zoo podcast. So I don't know. It's like, can you explain why she's not on it? Because we'd love to hear that she knows it fucking sucks. Anyway, so Carrie's writing. Literally don't know if a year or 3 months goes by. So I listened to the Writers Room podcast, which is Michael Patrick King and all the writers. And he says something to the effect of like, it's February now. I'm like, is this like a climate change commentary that February in New York is like spring now? I mean, they didn't even have the timeline correct. So I don't know what in the fuck is going on because even the writers did not give a clear story. And that would be like, he's running the show. He's been doing this for decades. It's a bizarre mishap or thing to not do correctly. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, anyway, so what I liked though is she's back. She's a writer, so she's writing. That's what we want to see. I mean, weirdly, people writing is not an interesting thing to put in a TV show or a movie, but they do a really good job with it. Like, they've got the seasons. We're looking at her apartment. She makes faces that no one makes when they're writing. We love to see it. So she goes to her book editor's office or whatever, and we all miss Amy Sedaris, who played her book editor in the first movie. In the first series. But Jack Berger, her mediocre boyfriend, who I hated, was also a client of Amy Sedaris' character, and because his book didn't do that well, she got laid off or something. I would have loved to see her come back and be like, I started my own independent label, because that's what happened with my book editor. You know, I wrote 2 books. She gave me my first ever book deal at Simon & Schuster, and she was miserable working there. And my second book, as I was in the middle of writing it, it somehow inspired her to live her life and fuck it. And so she quit, and then I got sent off to some other person that ended up being a total jag-off that didn't do any work. And my book editor became an author of self-help books, is now a millionaire, and started her own imprint. So it's like, I don't know, they could have done something like that with Amy Sedaris. But anyway, but I liked I don't know who the actress is that played Carrie's new editor, but she's fantastic. So Carrie's written this super sad book about Big dying, and the new editor says, look, you just got to give people some hope. So, you know, I'm not saying you got to fall in love, but I want this book to come out by Christmas. I want it to be a stocking stuffer. It's a little big of a stocking stuffer. Like a hardcover book on its first imprint is like $21. Just saying. It could be a full-on gift. But she's like, I want it to come out by Christmas. And I'm like, this sounds like a Hallmark Christmas movie. In fact, it sounds like a Hallmark Christmas movie that I wrote. Although the trope of the book has to come out by Christmas, I didn't make that up. Anyway, it made me happy. I was like, love that. So then her editor goes, but it's a little, like, we need a little bit of hope at the end. Like, even if you just go on a date, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to fall in love. Just one date, doesn't even have to be sex. Just like 500 words. Just like what did she call it? God, my brain is half dead because it's like midnight and I should be in bed. Epilogue, just an epilogue at the end. Like, you went on a date. And Carrie's like, all right, she's like, Oprah's book club is interested in this book. And basically they gave that mandate of, you have to go on a date. And I'm like, is that how Oprah's book club runs? It's like the fucking mob. Like, Oprah's just like, hello, I want to try to do my Marlon Brando impression. Hello, I want Carrie to go on a date. You want this book to be published? I'm going up against the 5 families, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. Okay, this is not funny. Anyway, so, but I guess that makes sense because it's not like Oprah's like, oh, another month, another bunch of choices. Look at all these books. Let me read them and see what ones I mean, obviously it's like its own business now where it's like they have a say in things. It's just weird. Anyway, so then there's like a fun chatting, like Carrie and the girls, and she's like, it's a mandate. And Miranda's like, well, if Oprah mandates that you go on a mandate, what are you going to do? And then Seema's there with them. She's like the new Samantha. They just kind of slip her in like, oh, did you notice? And we're like, we did, but it's fine. We don't care anymore. We're so over how you did Samantha dirty. We don't even want to think about it. Sure, come on in, Seema. And Seema's like, you date a man. So Seema, Carrie's real estate agent friend, who is actually awesome, is like, nobody buys real estate in the winter. I didn't know that was a thing. I don't know anything about New York City real estate. I am in a rental. But fully decorated by me, though, however. Thank you. She's like, so I spent Valentine's Day, we get it, you're single, coming up with a profile for you on this dating app, which I actually liked. It's totally a thing. I know people who've come up with profiles for their friends. Cute, love it. And it gets us out of all that, Carrie's got to pick a dating app and all that boring stuff. And what does swipe left mean? And what is, oh no, what if I meant to do this, but I did that? And then, oh, blah, blah, blah. You know, we already went through AOL in the 90s with her when like a chat window popped up and she's like, can Aiden see me? You know? And her email address was like shoe gal or something weird like that. It's like, I don't know, wouldn't you use your real name if you're a professional writer? Oh, who cares? So anyway, so Carrie's looking through, and Seema's like, and Carrie says, you staged me like you would stage an apartment. And I thought that was a cute line. And like, yeah, that's what she did. Like, this is good. I'm feeling safe. Like, you're bringing me into the old show. And so Carrie's looking at the, you know, the app. Okay, I could go out. I might go out with him. And so she picks this guy who's a math teacher. I'm sorry, just nodding because I'm tired. I'm not bored. And like, I don't know. I'm not that into dudes. Like it's like I don't look at men and go like, oh my God, I'm so into them. So it's like I don't know. Like I get like Charlotte was like, he's traditionally handsome. It's like, but I'm not getting like a sexy vibe from him. He seems like the nicest person, but I'm just like, I don't care anymore. Like I don't go out with whoever. I don't know. Oh, so that's where Carrie's at. She's about to go on this date now. But at the top of the episode, Charlotte is playing tennis with, I think they call her LTW. And it's like, okay, I guess. And then I'm like listening to the Writers Room podcast and Michael Patrick King was like, so I asked Kristen Davis, like, do you play tennis? And I'm like, yeah, she played tennis when she was married to Trey. Wasn't there a whole subplot about, or maybe he was playing tennis while she was having an affair with the gardener, but I could have sworn she played tennis a few times. I mean, again, I know it was like 15 years ago, but I was just like, why are we acting like tennis, whatever. Okay, so Charlotte's playing tennis with her friend, literally so bored. They play Eye of the Tiger, and I think it's a cover, unless I haven't heard that song in so long and it's not as cool as I used to think it was when I was a kid, but I'm like, it's like everything about this reboot is slow, and I feel like even the Eye of the Tiger cover was like, it's the Eye of the Tiger. Yeah, no, it's the thrill of the fight. Eye of the Tiger. Oh, God, this reboot. You know, it was like that rhythm. And like, she's playing tennis with LTW. And I was like, I don't know what this scene is. Is it like a yogurt commercial? It just gave me the vibe of like, we need to show women in their 50s doing activities, but that actually was not the point of that scene, because the scene became a plot line. It's actually worse than we need to show women over 50 being active. It was also Charlotte and Harry could have a fight so that they could get caught having a fight, so that they could be like, oh my God, our new friends LTW and her husband think that we're that couple. What couple? The couple that fights in the street. But what I really think this scene was about was Charlotte having to say that Harry is mansplaining to her so that they could jam in another woke moment, as Che would say. And you know me, I think everybody's mansplaining to me all the time. I accuse everybody of mansplaining. I'm on high alert at all times about mansplaining. Harry was not mansplaining. I am team Harry on this. Basically, Charlotte's playing tennis with her girlfriend all the time. It's so boring. I don't care. She's at home. Harry's in the kitchen in the middle of the night. He's like, I needed a little nosh. Like, we know you're Jewish. Like, every episode, they're just like, let's just write it. Harry saying something old and Jewy. So he's like, I'm having some nosh. And then they're talking about tennis. And he's like, why don't you ever ask me to play? And she's like, Harry, would you like to play tennis? And something is weird with Kristen Davis this season. She's literally delivering every line like she is Moira from Schitt's Creek. I don't know what's going on. She's pronouncing things weird. I'll get to that in a minute. So Harry's like, yes, I'd like to play doubles. So they play doubles, blah, 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 yawn, yawn, yawn. And I guess Harry at one point is like, get the ball. Like, I don't know, they're in the heat of it's the eye of the tiger, you guys. They're in the thrill of the fight. So they're doing the thing and he's like, get the ball. I mean, it's just like a normal thing you would yell. That's like, you're not even actually thinking, I wonder if this person I'm yelling get the ball to isn't thinking of getting the ball. Like, it's just a thing you blurt out. You'd say it to any gender. And after that, Charlotte's like, you mansplained to me, Harry. And he's like, what? And she's like, you mansplain everything. And, you know, it was just like, where did this come from? And so she goes off on him. Like, I have never seen her get this mad at Harry in the entirety of this entire series, the movies, everything. And it was like, this is what you're mad at? And she's like screaming at him, I fucking can't take it. I was like, I'm watching something of a breakdown. And then her friends LTW and the husband see them. Now, I don't even think they heard them necessarily. Who knows? But it's also they could go, oh, they saw us having a fight in the street. But then, so later on in the episode, so Harry's mad at Charlotte and he thinks that like she should say sorry to him for how she yelled at him, but she's not. So later in the episode, she says something to Carrie like, I don't know, blah, 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 sorry. And then Harry says to her, hey, what did you just say to Carrie? And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, you said sorry. And she's like, and? He's like, and you just said sorry to some woman that you bumped into in the lobby. You didn't even know her. Or like, you didn't even bump into her. And sure, you know how like, it's a thing, women, we do apologize to, like, we are totally taught to apologize. And like, I have to notice it in my emails, writing like, just doing this and sorry and let me know. And it's like, oh, take all that out, you know. Obviously, all kinds of people do it, and Canadians are always like, we do that, but it is a gendered thing. So, like, even if you're the anecdotal exception to, like, I'm a guy and I do that, that's great, but, like, women are trained to do that. And so Charlotte was trying to explain this to Harry, and she's like, this is where she talks like Moira from Schitt's Creek. So she's basically saying, I'm not going to apologize to you, and the reason you see me apologizing to people and other things is because women are always apologizing or something. It's like not even, it's like a thing I know a ton about, which is this shit and mansplaining, and they're not even doing it right. And she's basically trying to say, being competitive at tennis and critiquing people and going off is the one area where I'm not being like a nice girl. But still, like, he's not asking you to apologize for your competitive game. He's saying, can you apologize for like going off on me in the street, calling me a mansplainer and saying the F word? It's two different things. And she should have apologized and she didn't. But she goes, Harry, women have been apologizing forever. And as Demi Lovato says, sorry, not sorry. Literally, I think Kristen Davis has had a stroke and they're trying to just cover it up. I don't know why she's talking like that. Literally talking like Moira from Schitt's Creek. And it's not Charlotte, the character. I think something truly has happened to Kristen Davis. It's not the work she's had done on her face that doesn't make you fucking talk weird. I don't know what's going on. So then we've got Miranda. I mean, you guys don't understand. I have always hated Miranda, and everyone would be like, but all women are Mirandas. And I'm like, they're not actually. Just because she is like kind of level-headed and she has her shit together and she's sort of this like she's not overly like, I'm just all about sex like Samantha, but she's not helpless like Carrie. And if we're not Charlottes who are just romantics who want to marry a guy with money, I guess that means we're Mirandas. Like, I get what the world was saying, but I've always thought she was a terrible character. She was judgmental. She was cold. She told it like it is, but so do fucking racists. You know, like, I don't care. I mean, she wasn't 100% horrible 100% of the time, but she's not fun. Like, even though Carrie is, like, self-centered and dramatic, like, she's kind of fun in a weird way, and so is Samantha, and, like, it's weird, though, because in real life, I don't even want to have fun, but I want to be the not fun one. I don't even know what I'm saying. But I'm not fun in the way that Miranda's not. I don't know what I'm saying. I can't. I just always thought she was so mean to Steve. She never appreciated him. So, we see Miranda, and it's been a year or a year and 3 months since Che fingered her, and it's been a year and 3 months since Che fingered her, but a year since she has DM'd her, but also not really because it's been a year since Carrie wrote her book. But also it's only been 3 months for everyone else in their stories. Like, it's the biggest shining, glowing ball of shit I've ever seen in a TV show. Like, you don't understand that that's like the first thing you do. Like jobs I've had where it's like, we need this to happen on a Friday. She's got to do this on a Friday because she needs the weekend to think about it. But fuck, the thing we want her to do in the very next scene has to be a Monday. How do we solve this? And sometimes you can't. And you have to like kill an entire plot because you need these things to exist that don't. And like even in my dumb Hallmark movie, it was like I had to be cognizant of like how many days before Christmas is this? And then the next day. And then I can't believe I don't know if a year has passed, a year and 3 months, or just 3 months has passed. And everyone, I swear to God, has their own timeline. So, anywho, Miranda is at the farmer's market, which we've never seen them at an outdoor. The New York locations in this episode are so lame. It's like nothing fun like it used to be. So she's at the farmer's market, and she's like, got her ACLU tote bag, and it's like, don't give me that human rights bullshit when that's how you treat your husband. Like, so you just treat your husband like shit, but then at work, it's all about human rights. So she's there, and, Nia Wallace, the professor, comes over with her cute husband, who, by the way, plays Shai Baldwin on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I didn't even fucking realize that. I've been watching it the whole time. I'm like, wait, that guy looks familiar. Is he? Oh, he's on Mrs. Maisel. I've never met him in real life because we were all working remotely last year. Anyway, so he's gay in real life, and all I can think about when I watch it is like, how fun must that be for that actress to like do nude scenes and do love scenes and be like a couple with a gay guy in real life, so that you don't have to have that like straight man energy all over you and like he's seeing my boobs, and you know what I mean? I would so much rather a gay guy play a straight guy and then I do love scenes with him. So anyway, so they're at the farmer's market and they're like kissing, and Miranda's just looking at them and saying, wow, what a kiss. I mean, if this was a TV show, I would stream you or something. I don't even know. But so now basically she runs into Naya and her husband at the farmer's market. She's never met the husband before, but before she runs into them, she's yelling at Steve on the phone. She's like, I'm over by the tomatoes. Where are you? Can you hear me? And it's like, yes, everyone hears you. I hear you. By the way, he has a hearing aid. If he can't hear you with his hearing aid turned all the way up and an iPhone that you can turn the volume up on, then honey, help your husband get a new hearing aid. I also heard on the Writers Room podcast that David, whatever, who plays Steve, when Michael Patrick King called him to be like, we're doing a reboot, do you want to be on it? He was like, well, I got hearing aids now. Like, and they said that was so funny, like the way he just like announced it, that they wanted Steve to actually say that, which I think is great. But Michael Patrick King is so huge on, it happened in real life, so we put it in a script. And it's like, most writers' rooms are like that. Most things you see on TV shows, we're giving things from our real life. But you don't just slap it in and don't finesse it. It's like, so Steve's first line in this series is, I got hearing aids now. It's like, yeah, but it's still unusual to have them at a young age. So we don't just have them and act like that's what happens in your 50s. Like, it can happen, but it's not like my dad in his 80s who's losing his hearing for the first time because he's old. It's like, I don't know why David, whatever, lost it, but you don't have to make that the fatal flaw and why Miranda doesn't want to have sex with him. And that they said on the podcast, like, that one of the reasons she's not into him is like, not because he has a hearing aid, but just because, I don't know, my head's exploding. I just can't, like, again, you don't need a reason to fall out of love. It fucking happens, and it's really tragic. And it's especially tragic when, like, nobody's done anything wrong and even nobody's changed, but that unmistakable thing has changed. But I'm not one of these people that's like, Miranda went so hard on him for cheating on her and now she's acting like this. It's like, yes, she did go hard on him in the beginning, but then their therapist helped them understand that the cheating was a symptom of her lack of intimacy and sex with him, and that the other vows were just as important, which are communication and sticking it out. So for me, I'm not all aggrieved that she's technically a hypocrite. It's more just like, the one thing they learned from that experience was that they're a couple and they can work these things out if people want to. So I guess it's harder this time because it's like, unlike Steve, who came to her the minute he could and said he fucked up and wanted to still be married to her and was like, we haven't had sex in a year, you know, like, this is different because she's like not into it. It's not, you know, it's like both. It's like she's not into it, and then also she's having this kind of queer awakening, and, you know, sex with Che was so good, and, you know, for me, in my opinion, it's like I'm sure she'd have this with another woman she was attracted to. Like, it probably feels so intense because A, she hasn't had sex in a long time. Sure, maybe she and Che have a great chemistry, but she'd probably have that with another woman too if she in fact is like wanting the touch of a woman. And like, I get it. Like there's a thing with straight men where it's like a lot of times they don't have that sensuality and they're just like boob, boob, pump, pump. And like, they would never think to like do this to your neck or something. But Steve was never like that. He was a bartender. He got laid all the time. That was the magical connection between them, was their sex life. And that's what's so infuriating is like, again, you can show people falling out of love and falling out of sexual attraction, even though everybody might be good in bed and doing the sex right. You know what I mean? Like, they made Steve act like he, okay, so we'll get back. So she's screaming at him at the farmer's market, and he comes over, he's like, this farmer's market's bullshit. And it cracked me up. Now, I know we're supposed to like not think that's an attractive quality because he's saying that in front of the other couple, but he's like, the tomatoes and the potatoes or something, that used to be over there and now it's over here. And Miranda's like, that's my Steve. And she's kind of embarrassed to be around him. And I'm like, he should be embarrassed to be around you. Your fucking hair sucks. It's always been the weirdest fucking length. No matter what color it is, it sucks. Your clothes suck. You're the fucking worst. You're not fun. Go away. Like, when they went on their honeymoon, he just wanted to lay in bed naked with her for 4 days in a row and do nothing. And she was like, I need my phone. And back when it was a flip phone, what are you going to fucking do on it? You can't even, there's no Twitter. Ugh, God, I hate her. Anyway, so she's asking Carrie, did they ask about me? Has Che said anything about me? And Carrie's like, Che, hooks up a lot or whatever. Miranda's like, So now we're at this school auction that I don't even know, Charlotte and something, and there's a school auction. But before that, so Carrie goes on her date with this guy. And I actually really loved this scene. So Carrie goes on the date with the not that attractive guy, not ugly, but just who cares. And it's the quickest scene in the world, and it just works for me. They sit down, and he's like, this is my first date since my wife died. Carrie's like, how'd she die? He's like, ovarian cancer or something like that. And Carrie's like, me too. And he's like, how'd your husband die? And she's like, heart attack. And they're just like, And she's like, we're going to need some drinks. Cut to, they're coming out of the restaurant, super drunk, giggling, and then they both start projectile vomiting because they're so drunk. And I just thought that was so cute because you're in your 50s. You can totally still have those nights where for no reason you drink too much. And I love the reason, which is that they were nervous on a first date, getting shit-faced, talking about their dead spouses. It was just cute. And I like when older people do universal things. I was going to say young things, but it's universal. You throw up vomit at any age. And if you're not doing it all the time and it's not a problem, then it's cute and funny. And I really liked that. I know some people I talked to were like, I didn't need to see them puking. I'm like, well, I wasn't pausing it and let me get up close. But I was like, ew, gross. But I like that scene. So then we're at the school auction, which again, don't ask me to explain it because I zone out at anything to do with it. But once again, Carrie's there, Miranda's there, Anthony's there, all because it's Charlotte's kids' school's auction. And I'm like, did we learn nothing? Big died because everybody had to go to your dumb kid's recital. Carrie would have been with him when he had his heart attack, and she would have called. It's literally Charlotte's kid's fault that Big is dead. And so it's who else can die while we're at this school thing? So Che is somehow the host of it or doing stand-up at the school event. And Miranda's like, you didn't tell me that. And it's Carrie is such a bad friend. How do you forget to tell Miranda that? By the way, there was never a confrontation between Che and Carrie where Carrie's like, oh, you fingered my friend in my kitchen, and you're my boss, that's sexual harassment. And that is a hill I will fucking die on. And I had Che Diaz stans come after me going, you just hate non-binary people. It's no, I hate straight men. You don't know me at all. And then they're everyone's that's not harassment. You don't know what harassment is. I'm I'm 47. My whole life has been harassment. But thanks for getting it wrong. Young people are fucking infuriating. I love when they think people my age are not into queer culture and have never been harassed. It's that's cute. But yeah, no. You can thank us for any advancements in those areas. I'm getting really tired of it now. I even hate the trope of older people being thanks to the young people for opening the doors for us to talk about this stuff. No, the doors were open. You walked through them and pushed them a little further or told us, no, this is how we'd like the doors to be. But they were fucking open. Thank you, Gen X. God damn. Anyway, so Miranda goes up. No, she's Che's performing, and just runs it's a fucking Beatles at Shea Stadium. And so Che's hey everyone, I normally do a 40-minute set, but since they asked me to keep it clean, it's just going to be 3 minutes. Oh, shut up. And then these straight women after are oh my God, falling all over her. And I know for a fact, I won't bet because you know what? I don't like to gamble, but I will bet. They think Che Diaz is Shane from the L Word. A character, if you don't know, that straight women went fucking apeshit for. My lesbian friends were ew. And me and every straight woman was Shane's so hot. It's that is what I think they think they're doing with Che. Because he's like, straight women came up to her after like, I know we're not in your demo, but we love your comedy. It's like, no one is thinking about what demo the comedian they're complimenting is. Like, not when it comes to gender and queer. Like, maybe a guy that's like super conservative or something might say to me, I know I'm probably not like your other fans, but even then, like, no one says that to me. Like, I'm a comedian who people say shit to, and I'm sometimes the one that's like, when young men are at my show, like, are you gay? And they're like, no. And I'm like, why do you like my comedy? Like, and they're just like, I don't know, I like comedy. I'm like, huh. You know, like, I'm thinking about that stuff. I rarely find that the audience, whatever, who cares? Just moments that annoy me. But then when they were introducing Che, I think it was LTW, she goes, like, hot off her Netflix comedy show. And I'm like, how dare you not say comedy concert? We have said comedy concert every episode, and you have given all of us so much to make fun of. It's been our only joy in this time of Omicron and voting rights and, you know, Roe v. Wade maybe getting overturned. You cannot turn around and say it almost correctly now. I mean, nobody says Netflix comedy show. You say comedy special, but whatever. So Che goes up to Miranda, and Miranda's being weird, and Che's like, why are you being weird? And Miranda's like, I don't know, you didn't DM me back. And she's like, you know, and Che goes, I didn't even know you DM me. I get so many DMs. I'm like, not trying to be a dick, but, and I get it. Like, I don't think they were, but, and then Che's like, well, you should have just DM'd me again. And then she's like, or they're like, ask for what you want. And Miranda doesn't go, fuck you, you gaslighting narcissist. If someone said that to me, imagine a guy saying this. See, this is where we're getting like, just because someone's non-binary doesn't mean they can't be a dick, you know? And it's like, I think that's what an asshole says. And Che says it like, I'm your inspirational hero, you know, ask for what you want. And Miranda's like, wow, like blown away. And it's like, literally, my friend Greg Barron wrote the burger line, he's just not that into you. Then he had a book. It was a phenomenon. I was on tour with Greg as his opening act during those years when he was selling the book, He's Just Not That Into You. He was a consultant on Sex and the City. He came up with that line. It is the most famous Miranda episode where she is freed from wondering why someone doesn't call her or text her or email her back. It's like, he's just not that into you. So Che, they're just not that into you. Let's update it for 2022. We go from he's just not that into you in the early 2000s, and in the early 2020s, they're just not that into you. Perfect. I love it. How is no one bringing this back up? If I DM someone that fingered me in a kitchen and they had, first of all, they didn't even give me their number and they said DM me, I'd be like, oh, they're not that into it. But also Miranda's married, and so she's got other things on her mind. And so like, it was surprising probably that she even DM'd Che in the first place, but like, she's not going to write twice. She took the chance once. It was hard enough for her to do it. But Miranda doesn't think that's a dickish thing to say. But also, like, if you're into someone and you ask them to DM you, you're going to be, like, waiting at your DMs. Like, I hope they write. I hope they write. So it's, like, literally just as plain and simple as Che's just not that into Miranda. Che's into whoever's into her. And so they go and have sex somewhere. I don't know, some hotel somewhere. And of course, I just have to see this close-up of Cynthia Nixon's boob. She's like always willing to get naked. And I'm like, ugh, I just don't like her nudity. I never have. So she's like, I've never felt this way. I think I'm in love with you. And it's like, oh, come on. Like, I know she's confused and she's new sexuality, but it's like, you don't think you're in love with her and you know it. You should be like, I'm addicted to you. Like, something sexier, but like, you know it's not love. Don't be dumb. What do you love about her fucking comedy? And Che's like, you don't love me. You love you with me, which is the truth. I mean, it's a shitty, weird line and like kind of dickish, but I don't think it's dickish for this moment, which is they don't know each other. If they'd been dating a long time and someone said, I love you, and the other person was like, you don't, you know, that would be dickish. But I think it was totally right for Che to say, and it's like, I think that's true. And then, of course, they're like, and the weed you know. And then in this episode, oh, that was the best part. Everyone's been talking about it. It's like a fucking cultural phenomenon. It's the new comedy concert. Che goes, I get so many DMs. I don't remember. Miranda, I've done a ton of weed. She meant like in her lifetime. I've done a ton. That's not how people talk. I've smoked a lot of weed in my life. It's just, no one says I've done a ton of weed. You can say drugs. I've done a ton of drugs in my life. I have no memory. You know, something like that. And it reminded me, like, I wanted a window into the writer's room at that point, because I do feel like that's one of those things where the writers are like, Miranda, I smoked a lot of weed. And someone's like, hey, by the way, does that sound old school, smoked weed? Because, you know, people today, they've got tinctures and gummies. You're right. I've done a lot of weed. And it ended up sounding like my dead Nana wrote it. Like, I've done a lot of weed. And it's just been going all over Twitter, and there's memes. It's fantastic. I love this moment. It reminds me of growing up where we all watch the same TV shows at the same time. It really is exciting. So I don't know what's going to go on. I mean, I really hope what the Writers Room podcast said was, oh, no. We're going to totally explain everything, and we're going to give Steve his moment. And I'm like, I don't fucking think you are, because Miranda, before she has sex with Che, tries to work it out with Steve. And Carrie's like, why don't you guys go to counseling? And Miranda's like, we went. You know, they went 15 years ago. And it's like, go again, you know? Like, I don't fucking go, oh, well, you know, I put a tampon in when I got my period 10 years ago, but I'm not doing that again, so I'm just going to bleed out all over the floor, you know? So, it's not an analogy, but so Miranda's in the kitchen with Steve, and she's trying to recreate the Che Diaz fingering. And, you know, she and Steve, I guess, haven't had sex in years at this point, and they're doing their, like, little dessert thing. And she kind of grabs his belt, and she's like, hey, and she's like trying to do stuff. He's like, hey, what's going on? And then she's like, finger me. And he's like, really? And she's like, yeah. And so instead of it being like he fingers her, but she's just not that into it, they have to make it like Steve doesn't know how to finger. And it's like, trust me, he knows how to finger. Like, so he's like behind. So Miranda's like positioning him the way Che was, like behind her. And she's just like this, like staring off. It's like, you're such a bitch. She's not even trying. So he's like, we don't see it, but we just see this. He's like, is that right? Am I doing it right? It's like, they're acting like he's like fixing a dishwasher and like trying to stick his hand in to like find a part, you know, like, did I get it? You know? And she's like, nah. And then he's basically like, you're dry. Do we need some lube? And I'm like, why are you acting like Steve doesn't know how to finger? He was a fucking bartender in the 90s. How they met was the sex drive. When she first met him, like, then, but before he even tried to finger her, he went to wash his hands. And everyone was like we're supposed to be like, oh my God, he's not spontaneous. And it's like, I dated someone who, we were like kissing one time, and I was like starting to go further. Like he was, you know, like we lived in the same place for a little while. We lived in the same apartment, and he'd been out and about all day. And like, I didn't think when he walked in the door, we were going to like start hooking up, and we did. It was very sexy, but I was like, your hands are dirty. Like, can you wash your hands? He was like, you ruined everything. And I was like, I just don't want you touching my fucking vagina with dirty hands. Like, sorry. Like, you want to fucking like pay the gynecological bill when I get some weird yeast infection from LA dirt? I don't think so. I thought it was the hottest thing anyone could ever do is wash their hands. But then everyone noticed he didn't wash it after. But it's like, that dry old bitch, nothing got on there anyway. So that was that. So I guess now we're like, guess she can cheat on him because he tried to finger her and it didn't work. That's her attempt at saving the marriage. Not discussing anything with him. Not saying, hey, best friend, I'm starting to think I might not be straight. She just goes, finger me. And then he tries and she's like, forget it. And then she goes, he eats chia seeds. She's like, well, I worked on it. That's not working on a marriage. I care more about their marriage than she does. Anthony says he doesn't have sex with cater waiters, and then he said he got a hand job by one at this school event that he went to for no reason. Fine, at least someone's talking about sex. It's not that I want, like, one of the biggest complaints about this show is people like, the characters aren't having sex. I'm like, I do not want to see nudity or people having sex. I don't understand, like, if I'm gonna watch, like, if I'm gonna actually watch people have sex, like, I'll watch two people in real life that are super attractive. Like, I know, out the window, or people just want to come in and give me a show. But like on TV, like, it's not even like a proper, I don't like porn either, but like if it was like real, I don't know, I don't need to watch people doing it. But I like the situations that arose because of sex in the old show, where it's like, oh my God, we tried, but he couldn't get it up, and his ex called during it, or, you know, stuff like that, where it's like, oh my God, like there was an episode where, you know, like Carrie and I think it was Aiden were having sex, and like Big called during it, and like he's on the answering machine. Like, yeah, like crazy shit that happens during sex is very interesting. And then talking about it later, or you're dating someone, then they won't have sex with you, and you like talk to your friends about why. All that's great. But I just like, I'm not craving to see bodies in motion. Do you know what I mean? Like, not my thing. I feel like I'm leaving something out. Hang on one sec. This episode was a little boring. Like, it wasn't so bad that I'm screaming. Oh yeah, so by the way, people keep telling me that Miranda wears a wig sometimes. I am so dumb. One thing I don't notice on TV shows are wigs. I'm like, is she? Which hairstyle is the wig? When it's straight or when it's kind of curly sometimes? I think that's it. Like, so Carrie, this is what I thought was so stupid, is after Carrie and the guy puke, the teacher, she goes to Charlotte's school thing for Charlotte's kids, which after my husband died at Charlotte, like after being Carrie, like if I'm Carrie and Big dies because I went to Charlotte's kids recital, I'm not going to another of Charlotte's kids things, as I said earlier. But she goes, and the guy she went on a date with, the teacher, is there because I guess he's a teacher at the school that Charlotte's raising money for, that her kids go to. So I'm like, you didn't know that? Like, Charlotte, you didn't ever think to set Carrie up with this teacher? Maybe she's never encountered him. I don't know. So they try to auction Carrie off, and they're like, she's a sex writer. And I'm like, oh, this old trope, you know. And she's like, it's not like I write porn. Oh, who cares? So Carrie gets auctioned off. No one's bidding. Carrie bids on herself just to get the fuck out of there. And then the teacher bids. But in the whole lead up before that, Carrie's hiding behind Anthony, like, he can't see me. And it's like, why? Like, that would make sense if he was madly in love with you, and, you know, it's a guy you'd been dating for months and you broke up with him, and he was like calling you every day and stalking you, and you'd be like hiding. But you both went on a date, you talked about your dead spouses, you puked, it was funny. Why would you be hiding? You're in your 50s. Everyone is acting like they're 20. It's like, there are ways to go through things in your 50s without acting like you're 20. She could say to Anthony, oh my God, that's the guy I went on a date with. I literally, I want to talk to him, but I don't remember anything we said. And they do end up saying that later, but why doesn't she just tell her friend that? I don't know, I can't. And everyone's like, oh my God, you should write on this show. Listen, if I wanted to, I would have made a play for it. I didn't ever want to because I don't want to work with Michael Patrick King. Like, it's a thankless fucking job, and I was already on Maisel. I was already back on Maisel season 4, and I knew I was going back season 5. Like, it was never a consideration. This is not even me talking as a TV writer. This is me talking as a fan of the show. I would never critique it as a TV writer because I don't fucking know what I'm doing either. Like, it's not, it just so happens that I am one, but like, this is me trying to have it both ways. Like, I'm just a fan of a show, and I'm a snarky comedian, and I want to make commentary. Like, I'm not saying I could write anything better because fucking shit's hard. You don't know until you know. I don't even know what I'm saying. All right. And just like that, that's the end of my recap. Until next recap, have fun. Don't be mean to your husband, Steve.